is what we call the Trendelenburg gait. So Trendelenburg gait. Now the Trendelenburg gait, as its name suggests, is a bit confusing to know based on just its name, and that's why antalgic gait was probably more helpful. But with the Trendelenburg gait here, if you know anything about hip anatomy, you'll remember that the muscles that are associated with stabilization of the hip essentially include the gluteus muscles. So the gluteus, sorry, let me just rewrite that. So gluteus maximus, medius, and minimus. Now, in reference to a Trendelenburg gait, essentially what allows for the prevention of the pelvis. So when you're walking, your pelvis obviously moves, right? But when you lift your legs, so say for example, this, we're looking at the back of a person, and this is a very rough diagram. So this is the left leg, right leg, and this is a very rough diagram, but this is the pelvis. When you lift, say, your right leg, such that the leg is lifted up like that, you would expect your pelvis to move upwards as well, because it's pulling that leg up. And the muscles that allow for this action to occur are the gluteus muscles, and specifically they are the gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. Now, what happens in a Trendelenburg gait is that we actually have weakness of the gluteus medius and minimus muscles, which means that when a person lifts their leg, instead of the pelvis rising, we get a pelvis droop. So if you can see this elderly woman here, have a look at her right leg, and you'll see at the same time, by having a look at her right waist, whenever she lifts her right leg, her right waist always droops. I'll give you some time to look at this because it's a little bit difficult on this particular GIF, and that's why I've chosen this GIF, because these gaits are not going to be obvious to you all the time. So having a look, I'll explain it one more time. Whenever this person lifts their right leg, you'll see that their right hip droops. Can you see that? All right. So this diagram can be a little bit confusing, but essentially the principle is that, say if we lift the right leg and the right side of the pelvis droops, right? If that occurs, there's not actually weakness occurring on the gluteus medius and minimus muscles on the right side, but rather weakness occurring for these muscles on the left side. And that's why I got that diagram a little bit incorrect. Essentially, the muscles on the left side are associated with ensuring that the pelvis on the right side does not droop when we lift the leg, because essentially these muscles are providing a counter directional force such that pulling down this side will cause for this side to go up, and that makes sense. So if we have weakness in the muscles on this side, then that will cause this side of the pelvis to not rise properly, and that will cause for it to droop. So whenever we assess for a Trendelenburg gait, we always say that the sound side sags. So the side of the pelvis that has sound muscles, so muscles that are working properly, that side always droops. So if we have, for example, weakness in the left gluteus medius and minimus muscles, we will cause for a drooping of the pelvis on the right side. And if we have weakness in the gluteus medius and minimus muscles on the right side, then we will cause drooping of the pelvis on the left side. So wherever weakness in muscles is present, the drooping of the pelvis always occurs on the opposite side. Now, something that I want to clarify in reference to the previous slide is that I incorrectly stated that the biceps femoris, semitendinosus, and semimembranosus is associated with hip flexion. Sorry, that was meant to be the gluteus medius, minimus, and maximus. So if there's weakness in that or pain in those muscles that will cause an ancalgic gait, but that was in reference with the previous slide. Now let's move on.